The weirdest thing about Donald Trump isn't his spray tan, his Twitter meltdowns, or even his obsession with gold-plated everything. It's the fact that the people who love him the most are the ones he actually can't stand. Think about it. Trump has spent his life rubbing elbows with billionaires, dodging taxes, and bragging about his wealth. He wouldn't be caught dead at a backyard BBQ with the same working-class voters who wear his hats and cheer his name. And yet, they treat him like a hero. Why?
The oddity in all of this is the people Trump despises most love him the most. Go look at Mar-a-Lago, see if there's any people that look like you. I'm talking to you in the audience. The Trump voter who, idolizes the guy. He despises you. I don't hate Donald. Donald's doing his thing. I hate you for voting for him, for not having an intelligence.
Howard Stern, a guy who's known Trump for decades, has a pretty wild answer. Stern doesn't just know Trump from TV clips or news headlines. He's heard things straight from the man's own mouth, off the air and on it. And what he's spilling now? It's making Trump furious. Trump was a regular on Stern's show for years, and he didn't hold back. He rated women like livestock, bragged about walking into beauty pageant dressing rooms, and even made creepy comments about his own daughter. Now Stern is exposing it all. Even crazier, Trump once begged Stern for an endorsement. Donald Trump wasn't just a guest on Howard Stern's show, he was a regular. Over the years, he showed up so often that Stern once called him one of his all-time best guests. Not because he was insightful or interesting, but because he had absolutely no filter. If a thought popped into Trump's head, it came straight out of his mouth, no matter how offensive, bizarre, or downright creepy it was. One of his favorite things to do? Objectify women. Trump would sit there on national radio, rating women on a scale of 1 to 10, like he was at a county fair judging pigs. No shame, no hesitation, just straight up treating women like trophies. And if you think that's bad, his comments about his own daughter, Ivanka, took things to a whole new level of disturbing. He actually said, and then there were the conspiracy theories. Long before he was pushing election lies and fake news, Trump was on Stern's show spreading nonsense, like questioning if Barack Obama was really born in the U.S. He used Stern's massive audience to get attention, stir controversy, and boost his own image. Even Stern, the king of shock jocks, was caught off guard. This is a guy who built his career on outrageous radio, and yet even he was left speechless at times by how far Trump would go. And that says a lot. Donald Trump loves attention. Always has. So when he launched his 2016 presidential campaign, a lot of people, including Howard Stern, thought it was just another publicity stunt. Stern, who had known Trump for years, wasn't surprised when his old radio buddy came calling, practically begging for an endorsement.
The opposite of woke to me is asleep, and I think I'm awake. This must have gotten Trump all charged up, because at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, technically Sunday morning, he starts tweeting out, Howard Stern is a broken loser, jerk-off, not loyal, the usual, tirade. And I thought to myself, I'll tell you my thought on it was, what?
Here's the thing. Trump wasn't just looking for votes. He was looking for approval from the celebrity world, desperate to have big names stand by his side. But there was a problem. Stern had always been open about his support for Hillary Clinton, so when Trump asked him to speak at the Republican National Convention, Stern didn't just say no, he laughed it off. He knew Trump wasn't in this for the country. According to Stern, Trump never actually wanted to be president in the first place. He ran as a way to gain leverage over NBC and negotiate a better deal for The Apprentice. The campaign, the rallies, the slogans, it was all just a bargaining chip, but somewhere along the way, things spiraled out of control. People took him seriously, the media gave him endless coverage, and suddenly he found himself leading in the polls. Stern believes Trump went from running for publicity to actually winning by accident. And the terrifying part? He didn't seem to have a plan for what came next. A reality TV star had stumbled into the most powerful job in the world without ever expecting to get it.
What? Imagine you got to be the 45th president of the United States, and you're sitting writing about Howard.
Donald Trump doesn't just like attention, he needs it. Every rally, every press conference, every Twitter meltdown was part of the same goal, keeping himself in the spotlight. It wasn't about leadership, it was about ratings. Howard Stern, who's watched Trump chase fame for decades, said it best. Trump wanted approval more than he ever wanted to run a country. From day one, his presidency felt more like a reality show than actual governance. The dramatic firings, the non-stop scandals, the chaos, it all played out like a season of The Apprentice, except this time the stakes were nuclear codes, not boardroom deals. He treated the White House like a stage, his staff like contestants, and the public like an audience.
Before he was running for president, he was an open book. He would say anything. And, you know, oddly enough, during the campaign and even now, people quote these interviews that I did with him big time. I was quite surprised when they dragged out every single Donald Trump interview I had done. Donald Trump would come on my show, and this is why he was great. There was no filter. I go, Donald, Angelina Jolie, she's one of the most beautiful actresses in the world. She's a 6. He was right into it. Ivanka Trump.
You know who's one of the great beauties of the world, according to everybody, and I helped create her? Ivanka.
Most beautiful girl in the world. You know, I would marry her. These types of things, most people, certainly politicians, don't.
But there was a catch. When celebrities step into politics, the consequences are real. The same media that helped build Trump's brand turned on him when his leadership turned reckless. His ego-fueled decisions led to backlash, lawsuits, and historic impeachments. Even those who once admired his tell-it-like-it-is persona started questioning if they'd been cheering for the wrong guy. Trump didn't want to be president. He wanted to be the biggest star in the world. And for 4 chaotic years, that's exactly what he got. What if Trump had gone even further and offered Howard Stern a position in his administration? Sounds crazy, but then again, so was half the stuff Trump actually did. Stern himself has joked that if he had played along, he could have ended up as Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Imagine that. America's most famous shock jock presiding over legal decisions while cracking jokes between cases.
Don't say. And my relationship with Donald was, he did ask me to speak at the convention. And I had to say no. You know, the guy I knew I didn't know this was him. I don't believe his stance on abortion, for example. The Donald I know, I think he probably needed to get a few people abortions. I don't know what he's doing. The stance on abortion, the women don't have the right to choose what they, you don't have to get an abortion. But if you want the right, I remember the days of women in the back alleys with coat hangers. That's not acceptable. And you know who used to be able to get abortions? Rich people. They could get them. And so, let's face it, it is really unthinkable to me about what's going on in the country.
Of course, Stern never took Trump seriously. One of his funniest reactions came when he talked about Camp David, the presidential retreat. Trump once told Stern that he had no interest in going there because, in his words, it's a dump. Stern, always quick with a comeback, said he'd love to see it, mostly to find out what kind of ridiculous luxuries Trump thought were beneath him. But if Trump had really wanted to give Stern a role, there was one job that would have made for pure chaos: chairman of the FCC. Stern spent years battling the Federal Communications Commission over censorship fines, and if he had taken charge, he probably would have turned the whole system upside down. Imagine live radio with zero restrictions, or TV networks being forced to broadcast nothing but fart jokes and stripper interviews.
When I was watching the debate, what drove me nuts, and I was there debating with you, I was like, say that. And you said it. You said, well, this guy is talking, his big issue is immigration. Okay, fair enough, there's an immigration problem. And you made the point. You said, it's great that you're for immigration, but we had this fantastic bill that would have secured the border. Right. Republicans and Democrats did it together, but you picked up the phone and called the Republicans and said, reject your own bill. Now, when you say something like that, you'd think it would be the end of the discussion. The guy put his campaign ahead of, we could have solved this big problem. We would have had the resources, the money, everything. Yeah. And yet he's somehow during the debate, it somehow just goes away. To me, it should be like, we don't move on until we answer that. Why did you cancel the bill?
Of course, none of this happened. Stern had no interest in selling out for a political gig, But the fact that Trump surrounded himself with unqualified people makes you wonder. If Stern had said yes, would Trump have actually given him the job? With Trump, nothing was ever off the table. Donald Trump doesn't take criticism well. He never has. The moment someone speaks out against him, he either trashes them publicly, calls them a loser, or fires off an angry tweet, back when he had Twitter.
So, well, here's what I worry about. You got a guy who says, hey, we're not stopping here. You know gay rights are next. You know it.
Thomas said it.
Yep. Who doesn't have gay people in their life?
I actually was proud to perform some of the first same-sex marriages as an elected official in 2004.
Right.
Okay? A lot of people have evolved since then, but back in 2004. Here's how I think about it. We actually had laws that were treating people based on their sexual orientation.
Trump has a long history of dropping people the second they stop serving his ego. Stern was no exception. For years, Trump loved being on the Howard Stern show because it gave him attention. But the moment Stern refused to play along in 2016, Trump turned cold. He stopped calling, stopped reaching out, and eventually acted like their years of conversations never happened. What's funny is that Stern has changed over the years. He went from being just a shock jock to someone taken seriously in media and entertainment. Trump, on the other hand, did the opposite. He went from being a media celebrity to a political firestorm that even his old friends started backing away from. Stern didn't sell out. He didn't cave. And in the Howard Stern didn't expose anything new about Trump. He just reminded people of what's been in plain sight for years. Trump's obsession with attention, his desperation for approval, and his willingness to say anything for a reaction weren't just part of his media persona, they defined his presidency. It was never about leadership. It was about keeping the spotlight on himself. From radio rants to political chaos, Trump has always been more entertainer than leader. And if you're still wondering whether he really cares about the people cheering for him, just ask yourself, has he ever cared about anyone more than himself? If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. More videos are on screen now.